Okay, so my name is Alex O'Hanlon. I'm the engagement manager here at One Omaha. Just before we get started, bathrooms are through that door and to your right. There's lots of food and plenty of water and then drinks for purchase out in the lobby. Please eat until you're sort of uncomfortable tonight. And welcome to the third annual From the Ground Up speaker series. So From the Ground Up is a speaker series where we dive deep into relevant topics. We've done housing and environmental justice in the past. This year we're focusing on neighborhood preparedness. And so before we get into our conversation tonight, I just want to highlight a couple of the other programs that One Omaha can provide that can be helpful for taking some of the information you're learning here to that next step. We have a mini grant for up to $1,000 that is going to be opening in September. So that mini grant application is open throughout the month of September. We make those awards in December, and then groups have until the following September to implement their project using those funds. So the mini grant is a really great opportunity for neighborhood groups, neighborhood associations to access funding really quickly. It's also available when other neighborhood grants aren't available, so it kind of fills in that gap funding throughout the year. So whether or not you have a group that's like just getting started and you kind of like need some help with grant writing, or you have a long established group and you're looking to build grant writing skills up within other members of the group, the mini grant's a really great opportunity for that. We have grant writing workshops, lots of different ways that you can submit your application. You can write it, you can do a video. If you're really good, you can do a song. So we try to make it really approachable. So that's coming up in September. So if you're thinking through things and you're like, gosh, I need a resource for these funds, think mini grant. We also provide technical support and grant writing assistance for the Omaha Neighborhood Grant Program. So that is a grant program that is available for neighborhoods. The application opens in January and closes in March. Groups receive their funds in June, and then they have until the following December to implement their project. And that's for up to $5,000. So we can also help with grant writing assistance for that, for sort of those same purposes, if you're just getting started or looking to build those leadership development skills within your group. And then we also provide our collab services, which are facilitated planning sessions. So we can do asset mapping, project planning, strategic planning, project development. So you can do a collab service to come up with a project, or like a visioning session to come up with a project for one of those grants. If you have an idea for a project, but you're not exactly sure how to implement it, or how to organize all 15 people in your group around the implementation of that project, a collab service can be really helpful with that. The idea with a collab service and these grants is that if you do a collab service, the grant writes itself. Well, you write the grant, but it's way easier because you've thought it through really well at that point. We can also do collab services for developing like a neighborhood preparedness plan in your neighborhood. So we're collecting a lot of resources as we go through this speaker series. And so if you have those resources and you're just like, okay, now how do I get 15 to 20 people engaged on this topic, a collab service would be something to think about. And finally, we also provide fiscal sponsorship. So we provide fiscal sponsorships for the neighborhood grants, but also for other grants as well. And so for groups that don't have a nonprofit status, if your project aligns with One Omaha's mission of empowering people where they live, then we can share our nonprofit status with you so that you can receive grant funding. So lacking a 501c3 status doesn't have to be a barrier to receiving funding. So that's some of the different ways that One Omaha can help with implementing project ideas. But today we're here for From the Ground Up, so let's get to it. So this year, From the Ground Up is, we're in installment 2 of our 3-part panel discussion. And we're talking about neighborhood preparedness. So last week, we heard from Douglas County Emergency Management and folks from the long-term recovery team about different resources that institutions can offer. A couple of the main takeaways from last week. We've learned that it's really important to develop and understand your own personal preparedness plan. that idea of putting your mask on first before you help others. And we also learned that proper planning can help prevent turning emergencies into disasters. We also learned about resources such as the Salvation Army and Red Cross that residents can use to receive training in advance of an emergency situation. So that will prepare residents to be able to react to emergencies. And we learned about a few different communication sources to be aware of, one of them being the ReachWell app, which can provide up-to-date information in up to 17 different languages. We also learned about 211, which is a resource for folks looking for just about anything, you said. So 211 is a really great resource to share with folks after an emergency or who are looking for resources in general. And then we also learned that it's really important to have pre-existing connections with your neighbors so that you can share all types of information, whether it be up-to-date information about a changing situation or scams that you should be avoiding in the aftermath of an emergency. So all of those resources are in the packets from last week. If anyone doesn't have a packet and you want one, you could go ahead and raise your hand. Catlin will bring one around to you. We also are going to have all of those resources as well as all of the recordings from the Ground Up available on our website. So if you're looking to share this, to reference this information in the future or share this information with others, I'm going to follow up with an email tomorrow with those links, and so they're going to be perpetually available. And also folks who weren't able to attend tonight can always access this information. So that's what we talked about last week. This week, we're going to be hearing from residents who have set up emergency response systems in the past. We're going to hear about what worked, what didn't, and the goal for tonight is to gain insight from past experiences to help the development of future plans. After our panel discussion, we're going to go ahead and do audience discussion. So hold your questions till the end, but also if you have comments, thoughts, other sorts of things that you want to collaborate on, all of that is going to be available for that audience discussion. And then we're going to have plenty of time to network. So if you hear someone say something interesting and you're like, I got to talk to that person, you're going to have the opportunity to do so. And then next week, we're going to be hearing from neighborhood organizers about setting up proactive aid networks to build skills and put systems into place ahead of time. So let's get started tonight by introducing our panelists. Cami Gertis has served as a pastor in Omaha for the past 7 years. She's passionate about bringing people together, outreach, community events, and response efforts when anyone in the community may need support. She has a strong desire to create spaces where people feel welcomed and connected. Karen McGuire is originally from Wichita, Kansas, and moved to Omaha in 2012. She has a BA in Communications and minors in Spanish and International Studies. She lives in Elkhorn and is a survivor of the 2024 Arbor Day EF4 tornado. And Juan Carlos Garcia is currently the Director of Hispanic Outreach for the Missionary Society of St. Columban in Bellevue, President of the local LULAC chapter, and part of the National Pastoral Migratoria in Chicago, and a board member of Omaha Welcomes the Stranger. He's passionate about serving the most vulnerable. He is part of the Omaha Rapid Response Team that was created in early 2025 in order to be ready to help individuals detained by ICE and helping the broken families left behind. Let's give our panelists a round of applause. Thanks all for being here. Okay, so let's get started. Cami, do you want to tell us, well, for everyone, but we'll start with Cami, tell us a little bit about your background in community organizing and what response system you set up.
Yeah, so background in community organizing, I do work for a church, so naturally that kind of is a community organization. I started in ministry when COVID, like right before COVID hit. And so COVID kind of, a year into it, COVID kind of threw everyone into chaos, especially, the church and the community surrounding the church. And through that, we realized that we did not have major response systems set in place at all, outside of, a flood happened in Texas, we can send people down there, etc. And so what we started doing is we called every single person we have in our database and we checked in on them and asked them what they needed help with. And then that moved into providing a space for tutoring and a place for kids to come while they're doing their online schooling. And it just kind of spread. And then through that, we really started to build a good connection with the neighborhood school right down the street and our neighborhood association, who has been a really great partner. And so our desire just is to be help. And we have a lot of resources that are available for outside of our walls, and we just want to get them out. And that's really just the big desire. So that is how I'm involved. I'm involved in the outreach within our community. That looks many different ways. That looks like disaster response, systemic response. We also do a lot of response within our community as far as care teams. We do foster care teams, taking care of single moms, providing meals, mowing lawns, things like that. And so we really focus on that.
Great, thanks. Karen?
My name is Karen McGuire. I'm the founder and acting president of the Ramblewood Neighborhood Association, which I established after the 2024 Arbor Day tornado. I feel as though I've had a lot of different experiences that went well to this community organizing, but no really previous experience. So I always like to say anyone can get started at any point. So even if you haven't had formal experience in that.
Yeah.
My name is Juan Carlos, and our rapid response, the Omaha Rapid Response Team, was created to be a response to any raids that would happen, and just to be ready in case of anything, if anything should happen. It was not just something that I did, but it was a group effort. Before we started, we were part of the Workforce Alliance, which was through the Chamber of Commerce, and working with other organizations in order to help lift the economy through a workforce of migrants and other people, right? And since we already had those connections, we all came up with the, what's being done, what's going to happen, are we ready? And when we saw that there was nothing like that, then we got together as a group of many different organizations to create the rapid response. So it wasn't just a one-person thing, it was a group effort.
Can you all talk about some of the gaps that you identified that motivated you to start the response system? Can we do a start?
Yeah, gaps. No one knew what to do. I think that was the biggest gap. We would ask questions as far as how do you get this started? What should we do? What is already being done? And a lot of answers were like, we're coming up with nothing. Especially during COVID, during the time when we were doing remote tutoring, not a lot of families were able to get the resources they needed. And honestly, kids just needed to get out of their house, and there was not a lot of places that were open that were safe for people to come during the pandemic. And so offering a space where, you can be masked, you can have all the supplies and space that you need, and being taken care of, that was just something that we noticed wasn't able to happen. And so we really started looking around, what do we already have that we can then offer outside ourselves? And we just realized that through being an already established organization that does have budget, that does have space and resources, there are gaps outside of our walls that we're able to step in and fill. And so the question is not necessarily like for us, like what gaps are being done, but like how can we help fill the gaps? And so that's really where I wanted to fill that institution.
Karen, can you talk about some of the gaps you identified?
Yeah, I identified the gap was about not having a centralized form of communication, especially having a single contact point. I was very lucky to have external damage to my house after the tornado. And so I was trying to help all of my different neighbors that as best as I could. And I was reaching out to Christian Outreach Program of Elkhorn, or otherwise known as COPE, Keep Omaha Beautiful, the Rapid Response Team, and a lot of local churches. And I kept hearing them saying the same thing. We aren't quite sure how to get the information out to everyone because some people were not at home because they had no home. So if someone doesn't have a mailbox, do we give them mail? We don't have a phone number. So, and then fast forward a few months and I was working on a project to do street trees in the neighborhood with Urban Bird and Nature Alliance. And Deanna Faila said, you know, if you have a neighborhood association, you can get more funding in the future through neighborhood grants, and I would really encourage you to do that. So I spoke with Nancy Larry at Cope, and she connected me with Alex, and we were able to get a few neighbors together and talk about what would this look like. I always recommend to people to be proactive and do that if you don't already have one.
So it sounds like in your case, there was lots of resources available,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
missing link was getting resources.
To everyone, having the connector. I'm often described as like a community builder. I love to get to know my neighbors and ask them questions about their lives and be a part of their life. And so, being able to connect people together to have that centralized form of communication, that was kind of the missing piece for us.
Can you talk a little bit more about what being that connector looks like? Like, is it you're forwarding text messages?
Absolutely. I even at one point had a neighbor who said, well, we lost our trash can. Oh, they lost their recycling can. They are probably in Iowa by now. But yeah, how do we do this? So I was just calling on a lot of different places. So having that, being able to initiate making cold calls to different companies or organizations, just asking a lot of questions and making a lot of notes. I love making a good spreadsheet. So I was able to, send text messages and encouraged everyone else to, okay, I know this group of neighbors, talk to all the neighbors you know, and let's get everyone's information together. And emailing then became a lot easier once I had people's contact information, but kind of being the point person, that was kind of what that looked like for me.
Juan, do you want to talk about some of the gaps that you identified?
Believe it or not, some of the gaps we identified were years ago during the O'Neill rift. We were present during that, and we were trying to respond to that, but at the time we had nothing. There was no response team. There was very little. And more than anything, when we saw what might come, is when we said we cannot have another O'Neill. You need to be prepared this time. So the gaps were more focused and based on the previous experience, and identifying what are the different areas that we're going to need to be prepared for, just in case it happens.
What were some of those areas you identified?
A very clear one, for example, is schools. School districts need to be a part of the plan because, for example, on O'Neill, what would happen is both parents were working in the same plan. They both get detained, and there's no one to pick up the kids, right? And then the principal and the teachers are left, well, who's taking this child home? And there's no daycare, there's nothing, so where do they go? They have no family, so now we have a child that doesn't have a place to go, right? And you're not talking about one or two children, you're talking about a lot of kids in the same school, right? So that's a big issue. So identifying that was clearly, okay, we need the school districts to have a policy or some way, some solution to this problem, right? And it's preparing for those good things. Yeah.
It sounds like that idea of like the preparation can help the emergency or mitigate the emergency from becoming a disaster.
Correct.
So once you all decided to set up a response system, what were the initial steps you took? What were some of the most helpful resources? How did you go about getting others involved? What did that phase one of setting up the system look like? Cammy, do you want to go first?
The decision after that was made, I think the biggest thing was relationships. Meeting with Jen in the neighborhood association, meeting with Washington, asking the needs, and then kind of coming up with the idea of okay, this is all down on paper. Now, how can we step in and assist? Or what are they asking for help with? I think was the biggest thing. And then identifying people within the community that could help. We are really, really grateful to have a lot of people who activate really quickly. And so for like our food stamp shortage that just happened a few months ago, okay, we identified the need is food. Now let's just put that information out to our community and see how we can build a food pantry. And so after like the system was set up, this step is just identifying people that we can partner with, school, neighborhood. On our Zoom call, you really said a great thing that I've been thinking about a lot as far as, well, not everybody has children and not everybody, is involved in their neighborhood association or is on social media. And so that's even something that like now at this point I'm thinking, I'm like, wow, what is the communication I can go out to those people? And that's where I feel like your relationships outside of what you're doing in your own little bubble is really helpful. And so other nonprofits that we partner with is really helpful. And so looking at who we can reach out to and ask to partner with and say, hey, we have these resources. Do you have people in need? And just asking the question is one of our initial steps. And then also identifying the people around us that can be helpful with that.
Karen?
The resources largely came from you, so thank you. I found out that setting up a neighborhood association is actually fairly simple. We were able to talk about what is the difference between a homeowners association and a neighborhood association. So we don't have to have fees. I'm not gonna have someone tell me I can't have a porch goose that. I was able to talk to neighbors and engage their interest and make sure that they understood what it is and what it isn't. And then it was a matter of really just going onto the City of Omaha website and identifying contact information for myself and an alternate. It's always important to have an alternate just in case life situations change. And that updates annually. I just realized that I must have established it about a year ago because I just recently filled out that information. Yes, we are still active. And the resources, it was basically just also defining the parameters of where is this? So that way it's, this is the specific neighborhood and it doesn't have to even necessarily, I could have also included another neighborhood in it if they had been interested. But those resources were really helpful.
Juan, you want to talk about what your phase 1 looked like?
Well, it was a lot of research, right? And not just from one person, but from many different people. So we had to delegate work to different organizations, to different groups that are part of this. And you find out this, you find out that. Each person is in charge of a little tree system, right? And you're going to be in charge of mental health, and you do all that down, right? And little areas like that. For example, I was working with my contacts, which would be with the Clinic Legal out in Washington. They're Catholic attorneys all across the U.S. And it's a web of them, a big network. And it was through them that we're getting legal advice and helping to create like toolkits and all kinds of different information that can help us prepare. Right? So it was a lot of delegating and trusting people.
So it sounds like, you all have like developed some toolkits or developed some spreadsheets. How do you share out resources with folks? Do you email them? Do you provide them paper handouts? How do you help make this information more likely?
I feel like we're trying to figure that out. I think that's a great question. Currently, we are looking at doing like a surrounding area mailer that is a survey. We want to ask 3 questions like, do you have a need? How can we help? And are you willing to partner? And then what can something in the future look like? Because the communication aspect of it is so difficult. Not everybody's on social media. And even then, how do you branch out beyond just, the few hundred people that do follow you? And so we're looking at like a mailer and just kind of like going out rather than waiting for people to come in. And I think historically our experience is we've been able to help by people coming in, and then it's just like, oh, we heard you were doing this, like, can you do this? And we're like, yes, like, let us help. And so trying to just be that more proactive, how can we expand, and then find out what the need is and find out who's willing to partner and who's willing to have a conversation, and then going from there. So I feel like we're kind of like in the middle of that right now, of just the communication aspect.
Karen, how do you share resources?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is email or texting or calling or walking, and because it's the neighborhood, it's, even if I'm out with the dog, trying to say hi and talk to them. It has been a lot of that, just direct communication so far. But I did receive help from Nancy Leary at Christian Outreach Program Elkhorn in setting up a free website, and we have the free email address. So at one point we had some signs with QR codes, and they could go to the website there and see the information. And we did a survey about tree damage and tree loss for our first project. So a lot of it is, still trying to figure out what is the best option. I do have some people who say just text me. So I have their number, I have, all that information saved. So a lot of that is just direct around the neighborhood.
Do you feel like that website is really helpful, having like a...
Yeah, especially when it was like at the stop signs throughout the neighborhood. There's only 2 entrances to the neighborhood, and maybe a third one, kind of. But yeah, putting it at a couple of stop signs, people would see that, and it's, Bramblewood neighborhood, check out more information. And so they were able to go on there and sign up, and even able to put what their communication preference was, whether it was text or if they needed Spanish, I speak Spanish. So I was able to kind of get some information and interest drawn in that way as well.
Put you on the spot, about how many people signed up using that process?
I think it's about a third of the neighborhood, so not too bad, not quite as much as I would like. So I think it's about 100 out of about 300. So, and some of it may be duplicated, like, oh, okay, the husband and the wife both signed up and they're in the same household. So learning that information as well. But and every now and then people will say, oh, hey, you gotta get on there and sign up and just put your contact information, so that way if there's an event or if they have information, they can share it.
Juan, how do you share resources, like those toolkits that you talked about?
Yeah, I mean, communication has been, is, and will always be difficult. In our case, it's difficult because we're not talking about just go and what each organization or individuals or churches' limitations are. So we cannot force what you have to do this. No, what can we help with? And then we fill in the gaps that were left, right? So it's working with already existing organizations to support the funding. Because, well, know your rights training is you have a little packet, right? And copies can cost money, right? So
1,000 costs quite a bit of money.
and basically we're talking about helping thousands of families in the area, right? And not just that, it's spread out throughout Nebraska as well. We are just part of the Omaha Rapid Response Team, but there's a response team in different cities throughout the state, right? And we meet every month, sometimes every 2 months, with all of them together as a state, right? So I mean, it just grows. It grows really better.
Can you talk a little bit about how, now you're looking to like engage neighborhoods more, and like what that process looks like, and kind of like the sandwich of like organizations, neighborhoods, and where each is like helpful?
Right. We're starting to work with neighborhoods, and this came through when I'm working in Chicago with the Catholic Theological Union. There they have Pastoral Migratoria, which is pastoral ministry, basically, but it's for migrant ministry. And there they have a term that we call neighborism. which is focused not on just one faith or politics, or no, it's nonpartisan, and it's mainly focused on human dignity and the dignity of the person, regardless of race, religion, anything like that, right? So it's based on that, and it's on the power of family and how neighborhoods are the solution to that. And because there are currently no raids, right? It's more out on the street. They follow an individual, block off the street on both sides, and they take everyone in that area, regardless if there's a search warrant or not. So now it's different, and by the time response tries to arrive, they're gone. So like they take it 10 minutes, gone. So no response can arrive in time, right? So how do we do that then? Well, we need a neighborhood system where the neighbors that are closest, it won't take them 30 minutes to arrive. They can be there in 5 minutes, right? So now we need a response. And basically it's not to stop things because we have to follow the law, right? We have to be law abiding. So it's more to document what is happening. Because there's a lot of things that reports are saying that are contrary to what was caught on video, right? So we need people there to record and document to make sure that the law is followed.
Can you talk a little bit about what engaging neighborhoods looks like for your group?
It's a challenge. Because we're not talking about just your neighborhood of friends that you know. You're talking about creating, well, here's all of Omaha metro area, right? Now let's split it up into smaller areas, and now we need someone in charge of each area. And now we need to break that down even further. And now it can be quite a task, right? So that's why it's very challenging to reach, especially when you're talking about the area of the people affected, where the families are living. There's a lot of fear. And there's a lot of people trying to live off of this fear and trying to make money from the victims, right? Or taking advantage of the nonprofits and trying to get money from them as well. So I mean, there's a lot of fraud going on and a lot of scams. So people are weird, people are afraid. So trying to win their trust is not easy. And usually right now it has come mostly through people that are connected to these nonprofits that have already earned the trust of the people, or through their attorneys, which have already earned the trust of the people, or through their local churches that have already earned the trust of the people.
Is there, if like neighborhoods are interested in like getting involved, can they reach out and just by reaching out be immediately helpful? Or is it kind of like wait to be reached out to? Like what does that process look like if people want to help you build a system?
I don't like to limit people that want to help. So we are open, and basically when somebody comes, depending on what their level is of opportunity to help or what their tools are, is where we can assign what they can help with or anything like that. But usually we work what we call that through ICE watch little groups, right? And each person is in charge of their group. And you don't need to have a big group. It doesn't have to be like, it's 25 people for this block. No, it could just be 3, right? For example, I have 5 seniors that were in Chicago that you're like, wow, they're doing more than some groups in big cities that have like 100 members. These are just 5. They're just 5 religious sisters, right? And you know, they're nuns pretty much, right? And they are in their 80s. One was in their 90s. And I went to visit them and I said, well, how do you do this? You know, and she just looked at me and she said, well, if I don't, who will? Oh, that hurt. I mean, that hurt, because here you're looking at people that are in their 80s and their 90s and they're out praying outside of detention centers, talking to judges, to senators, to congressmen, and doing all this work. It's amazing work. So you don't need a big group of people to watch over your neighborhood. You just need to be in love with your community and want to protect your integrity. That's all you need.
Thank you for engaging on my questions. Cami or Karen, do either of you have anything that you want to add about leveraging existing relationships, like building new ones?
kind of just start. I don't know. I've always been. I'm an extrovert married to an introvert. So yeah, and it's the neighborhood that was devastated by the tornado. Is the neighborhood that he grew up in, and so that has a lot of sentimentality for me. It's where I've been able to put down roots, and it's home and it's family, and yeah, you just kind of. I remember hearing on the news that Omaha Rapid Response was setting up, and I had people coming into the neighborhood, and they had on a shirt that said St. Patrick's Catholic Church. So I just started talking to people and asking questions and taking their contact information and sharing mine and saying, you know, if you can think of anyone who has a way to help or just wants to be a part of, you know, whatever was going on at the time. I remember, you know, that weekend, just hearing the buzz of chainsaws in the entire neighborhood. And we had maybe an 80-year-old guy come by, and he was like, all right, what do you need cut down? Here's this one man with his chainsaw. And so, yeah, it's that, you know, faith and humanity restored kind of moment, and just taking note. Noticing, listening, when you seek it out, writing it down and keeping notes. I have tons of notes in my phone about, you know, and I would sit at the headline tornado or, you know, Ramblewood neighborhood. So just, especially the people who I saw there, like you were saying, like when people show up and they are making a difference, and you can see that they care. Asking them how can I connect with you? How can we continue to do this together? So yeah, I think it's just that tenacity going and listening, doing a lot of listening. It's good.
I agree with that. I think for us, coming from an organizational standpoint, our two biggest things is persistence and building trust. Persistence, just kind of just being there all the time. We do have resources where we could do neighborhood events and simple things like a food truck rally or something like that, where we are like out getting to know people and building the relationship, and so that we can build trust. Hey, we just want to serve and to love. That's genuinely all we want to do. There's nothing that is tied to that. There's nothing that is expected to come with that, other than the fact that this is part of our belief system, and we just want to serve and we just want to love, and we have resources and availability to be able to do that. So I would say those are our two biggest things. And then as far as leveraging relationships, I've just learned not to say no for people. I think sometimes we can think that asking someone to step into a situation which would require a lot of them is like daunting. We're like, I can never ask this of someone. However, there are so many people that are in our community and we are surrounded who do just want to love people, and they just don't know how. They don't know what they can offer. They might look at their finances and are like, I don't have any finances to give. Or they might look at their schedule, be like, well, I have finances, but I don't have time to give, you know? And if you just put the ask out, you would be shocked at how many people say yes. And so I just remind myself constantly, don't say no. Like, don't say no for them. Just ask and see what happens. And they also might have a connection. And I think that that's the part of community that's also really important is, hey, okay, you said no. Do you know anyone who would be interested? Do you know anyone up the street who could do that? Do you know anyone that has a lawnmower next to Janet who lives in this house and needs her lawn? You know, like just putting the ask out and being like fearless in asking and just boldness.
I feel like I'm hearing you say, like, don't have your first point of contact be
Absolutely, absolutely.
And make sure to like have an idea of multiple ways people can help so that you can help to plug them.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so can you all talk about proofs in the pudding, some of the positive aspects of the system that you put in and that you put in place, and also like what some of the biggest barriers have been? Karen, you want to go ahead and start this time?
Yeah, I have a new nickname in the neighborhood, the Tree Lady, and I wear with pride. Before the second anniversary of the tornado, I will have helped plant about 600 trees by those affected by the tornado, and a lot of that was reaching out to Keep Omaha Beautiful, Urban Bird and Nature Alliance, and and then also Great Plains Nursery. Turns out that one of the owners, he came to our house and said, "Wait a second, your last name." He went to high school with my sister-in-law, so it's a small world. But yeah, that's been amazing to see the growth, and especially this time of year with all of the buds on the trees, and you see them flowering, and you see the kids playing around them. And I saw a neighbor boy pulling weeds near one the other day, and so that's been amazing. And because we now have an organization and we have a central point of communication, it's on the website for the city of Omaha through the mayor's website. And so I also was contacted by Habitat for Humanity. They were wanting to do like a fall neighborhood cleanup, and they helped us with a landscaping project at one of the entrances to the neighborhood. And it helps it feel more like home. I felt there's so much destruction and devastation that happens after a tornado, and I often described it as an open wound and feeling exposed because you have no more shade. You have these trees that were there for 40 years, and suddenly so much is gone. And it just feels barren. And so that is an example of life returning, that you see every season, that it's changing and it's growing. And so that's been amazing. That's been probably the best outcome.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the scammers that came around and some of the thoughts you've had on how to prevent that?
Yeah.
In the aftermath of the storm?
Yeah, so we did have the National Guard show up after a few days. It wasn't right away. There was some looting that was happening, and that was early on, but it did continue. There were signs throughout the neighborhood, we're rebuilding, stop looting. I even saw a sign that said, "You loot, we shoot." So that was intense because people already felt so much ripped away, and then to have it continue to happen, it was re-traumatizing. For myself and my family, we had so much shade in the backyard, and now there's hardly any, but we had one tree that was matchsticks, another one that was, can we say that, I don't know, and then one that we were pretty intent on keeping. And we were working with Omaha Rapid Response, and they had some volunteers that were helping to do work for free for people who were affected by the tornado. And I was told, okay, this is the name of the person who's coming to help. They're gonna take that tree out. And they showed up and they said, okay, well, what about this tree that you said you weren't certain on? How close it is to the fence? We really, in my opinion, it probably should be removed. And I said, okay, yeah, I think the family would agree with that. That's fine. And they said, is it okay if we move this part of the fence? So, because we're gonna have to get some bigger equipment in here. Okay, that's fine. And afterwards, I said, can I have, business information just so I can write a nice review online? Thank you, this is so kind of you. And then 2 weeks later, someone from that company showed up on our doorstep demanding money. And it was scary because they're right on my front door and asking for a lot of money, and we're already worried about money, and is our insurance going to cover everything or just some of this? So that was, luckily my husband works from home and he was also there, and I've got 2 tiny dogs, but they were vocal. But yeah, I contacted Omaha Rapid Response Team, and I said, this is what happened, And I told them that they would need to talk to you, so they left eventually. And they said, yeah, do not pay them. They are trying to scare you. And I said, mission accomplished. I do feel scared. 2 weeks later, they showed up again. And I said, they are right down the road. They're set up, over here. This was supposed to be volunteer work. But at first, even my mother-in-law said, well, maybe we should just pay it, just to get them to stop coming. And so the Omaha Rapid Response Team ended up calling the police department. They filed a police report. I was contacted by the police chief, and they, said that they have my information and that person's information, and definitely do not pay it. And I had thought, it would have been so great to avoid all of this. Again, being proactive goes a long way. If there were a simple, basic template of, we are sending you over to do volunteer work. I, the undersigned, promise not to ask for any money. I will not return. I will be respectful of their property. A copy for the nonprofit, a copy for the volunteer, and a copy for the homeowners. This is not something I've created yet, but I think that would go a long way. And I think any neighborhood association, that's something that they could look into as well. So that way people know, if this happens, don't be afraid, because we have this. You can have them sign it before they do any of the work, because they also kind of messed up the fence and didn't put it back quite the way that it was. We'd already had damage, so that was pretty scary. But it was nice to know that we had support after the fact. But yes, it would have been nice to have the proactive step.
So some sort of contract template that
Yes.
anybody who comes offering free resources, you can say gladly, once
Yes.
you sign
Yes.
this contract.
And we are
Affirming
both
of your
agreed. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Juan, do you want to talk about some of the positive things and what some of the biggest barriers have been?
I would say the biggest barrier is the toll of the human heart when you're helping people and you feel limited with how much you can help with. The mental health, the importance of the mental health of the volunteers as well, not just the families, right? So we found that out real quick. When some of our volunteers stopped volunteering, it was like, no, I can't take it anymore, I can't help. We need to help our volunteers too, right? So it's helping the families affected, but it's also helping the volunteers that are helping the families affected, right? So that's one of the biggest challenges that we faced was, how do we continue getting volunteers if we burn out, right? So how do we prevent that? How do we work that? How do we solve that? And then some of the positive things would be, of course, the changes you see in people when they come and they receive that help. Women that are left alone that had never thought of working before, or had never thought of I'm going to be alone with my 6, 7 children, and what am I going to do now, right? Some that didn't even know how to read or write, that are now taking classes and now can read and now can write and now have a job and now have a way forward, and their self-esteem just lifted, right? And it's those types of cases that are very positive, that really help, goes with, but it's still very challenging sometimes to accompany them, because, I'm not a mental health practitioner, right? But sometimes people will just open up, and you need to know how to manage that.
Kimmy, how about your project? Positives and barriers?
Yeah, positives, I would say connectivity. Just watching people connect and be helped, and then finding the relief. I think it was last summer we had the extreme heat with the power outage. And so we set up a cooling center and station, and families that would come in and just like find immediate relief. I think that that's always a positive, is just seeing how you're able to respond and help. And then watching people like activate and just desire that. A barrier also, I would say, is getting people to think outside of themselves and to think like, hey, there might not be a major tornado disaster happening right now, but there are day-to-day needs. And if you just partake in the day-to-day assistance and the day-to-day help, when that does happen, it's so much easier for you to step in and to want to like give more of yourself than maybe you think you can. And so I think a barrier is just really trying to convince people, like, just participate deeply and to like keep coming. And then also sometimes it's just operating in a larger system that's been set up for a long time. We talked earlier where like just from a business standpoint, if we are helping someone financially, you know, we have a way that happens, and we might not be able to help immediately when they need it. And so sometimes that feels like really difficult for us because we want to help and we want to give, but they might need something tomorrow and we can't help them until Tuesday. And so that's where those relationships do come into play, stuff with the county, stuff with the association or the school. Hey, do you have anything that can help? We can help on this day, but can you help someone get by here? Or, you know, Bob said this weekend that he had an extra bonus, and is there anyone that needs help? And so sometimes it's a barrier, but then a lot of times that leads to something positive. So we're able to connect.
So when you said you set up like a heating and a cooling center, what does that look like? Is it just an air-conditioned space, or?
Yeah, so we did not lose power, which was great. But we are on 55th and Leavenworth, and so a lot of the surrounding homes did, and it was really, really hot. Hey, wasn't it up about hundreds? Do you remember what this was?
Yeah.
And so we had air conditioning in the basement. It was very cool. We had water and food. We also partnered with the Salvation Army Canteen, their mobile canteen. They set up 2 nights in our parking lot so people can come and get free food and just be fed and cared for and get a relief from the heat because it's just unsafe. So that's what that looked like.
So you had air conditioning and you said, this is a cooling center.
This is a cooling center. You don't, we do, you can be cool. We're all cool together.
Sometimes I think it's good to know that it can be that basic.
Yeah, exactly,
That, you know,
exactly.
like-
Yeah, and that's, I do think is a barrier for some people, just to think like, oh, I don't have anything to give, and which keeps them from like stepping in. And you talked about that on Monday, Juan, of like just wanting people to like do something. But sometimes we have these really big, grand ideas on it has to look this way, and that is a barrier. And you're like, it doesn't have to look that way. Your house is cold. Invite your neighbor in and like connect with them, and that's pretty simple.
Right. Okay, great. So what sorts of skills do you think, if you had to name like top 3 skills for setting up emergency response systems, what would you say are the top 3 skills? Hard skills or soft skills that you'd like to see, or that you think people should think through developing in advance?
Empathy. I think empathy, I would say, is actually a hard skill. I think that that's something that's really important because you're not going outside of yourself without that. Organization is something that's really needed. I think you have explained that really, really well tonight. What's the communication? What's the phone tree? You know, who are we calling and when? And that's something that just can't get lost in a folder. Like, you have to be on it and organized. You have to know who's in place. Like our police community liaison that has switched recently in the last 2 years. So like, who is this person we can reach out to? And I think that requires organization and then communication, actively being able to communicate the needs and how you want to help, and then communicating and putting yourself out there. This is what I have. Do you have this? Do you want to do this together? And just being willing to do that.
So having a plan, you'll probably have to pivot, but it's easier to pivot.
Acclimation. Maybe that's what it is. Acclimation.
Yeah. Carrie, somebody else.
I was going to say adaptability. Yeah, you have to adapt because it's the needs always change. And then empathy was going to be another one because you when you are responding to a need, you gotta listen to them. You need to just sometimes hold space for them too, and community building. It's that just knowing who your neighbors are, or if you don't know, being willing to reach out or say hi, learn their name, learn their dog's name or whatever, you know. Yeah, I think it's gotta be able to pivot, but getting to know them.
I feel like the listening thing is so important because someone might not come to you and say, I need A, B, C. They might tell you a long story in which you can identify
Yes.
A, B, and C.
I'm a big storyteller. Yes. And I think one thing I learned after the tornado is if you ask someone, how can I help? And they're in an emergency or a disaster, I don't know. I don't know what to do with my own body right now, especially if they're in shock. So what is most upsetting to you right now? What is stressing you out the most right now? Or I can bring some food over. Would that be helpful? Well, no, my refrigerator's not on and I'm worried about all the food I have to throw away. Would it be helpful if I help you go through that food? Or do you want to put some in my refrigerator or whatever that may be? But yes, that listening can help you identify there's what they're saying in between the lines.
And also just thinking about like what you were saying about like different people can plug in at different places. Some people might not be the greatest listeners. They might be really good with a chainsaw or really good at going through your freezer.
For sure.
The listener doesn't necessarily need to then do all the follow-up tasks.
Yeah.
But just be that person that can sit there and nod and not be like,
Yeah.
no. Juan, what do you think are the top
I will give
skills?
up. Yeah, I mean, listening, I think, to me has been the most helpful. Like you said, it's listening to the person, listening to understand, not listening to respond. I think is very, very key in the situation. And that's going to lead you to whatever you have to do. So it's not, at least personally, it wasn't coming in and I'm going to make a plan. Because I tried that and none of it ended up being what I wanted at first, right? So it's letting the people guide your planning. So it's whatever the people are telling you, and they will tell you what needs to be done. It's not you coming in, no matter how well educated and everything you have, yeah, it's going to help as a better starting point, but at the end of the day, it's the person with the need that's going to show you the way on what you need to do.
So maybe your plan is more like principles of listen and then react as opposed to like walk to this space and do this thing at this time.
Yeah.
So last question is if your system is still in place, and if not, why is it not in place? And if it is in place, what sorts of collaborations are you looking for now moving forward? Cami, do you want to start?
That's a good question. Yeah, the system is still in place. I think the system is still becoming a system. Like, we don't have a name for the system. But I mean, as long as the church is around, it's going to be around, which is a relief to me because there are a lot of people that do need that help. So yes, it's still in place. And then collaborations, just further networking in the community, neighbors moving in, getting to connect with them, further networking with the school. That's a really big one for us. Washington Elementary does have a lot of needs, and I think that that's a collaboration that we're always looking forward to just continue growing, because through all of their needs, I mean, it is so diverse, just what they need. We are able then to just connect with other people and be like, oh, they need this, but like we can't provide that. Do you know anyone that could provide it? Things like that. So.
And so your system, so you are located on 55th and Leavenworth, and so residents in that area, how can they reach out to be a part of your system?
I want to find them. That's the hard part. So I'm like, oh, I want to reach out to you. Contacting, emailing. I mean, our email and phone number and stuff is on the phone, or is on the website. We have some friends that live in the neighborhood, and so I think neighbors get my phone number a lot. I even have one today, like, that called me 3 times. I'm like, how did you get my phone number? So I think calling, contacting, but also going to one of like our neighborhood events that we throw. We partner with the association, like I said, do like a food truck rally or like fall events, stuff like that, and that's a really great place to connect.
Karen, how about yours?
Yep, it's still in place, still growing. As I mentioned, we're about a year after getting it established, but I think one of the challenges has been that everyone has been in different phases of rebuilding after the tornado. So, but yeah, different collaborations. It was great working with Habitat for Humanity, but if anyone else wanted to help with a neighborhood revitalization project, I thought it would be cool to have a community garden, help with food sovereignty. So maybe working on a grant proposal for something like that. But I'm open to any, since we just finished up with all of the trees for now. I'm open to kind of whatever. So yeah, people can contact me. I think our email is ramblewithneighbors@gmail.com.
Juan?
It's definitely still in place. It just has a different face. Like, it was initially created to be a response to raids, and now it has been more response to the human factor of what's left behind, helping with the human dignity, and this is more accompaniment. It's a long term for many months. When there's still families that are still being helped now with their rent, with their bills, with other things like that, from the June rate, I mean, it's still helping those families, and they're still not where they should be. I mean, they're still facing huge challenges. So the system is still in place. We are ready in case there would be another raid or anything like that, but it just has changed into helping long-term and accompanying people.
Any sorts of collaborations you're looking for now, or how folks can get involved?
Right now, the best way to get involved is through the neighborhoods, right? Creating small neighborhood ice watch groups, right? And then connecting with the bigger web of them, and just responding to any types of reports, and even as small as debunking fake reports, right? Because that generates a lot of fear in our people. Just this morning, I was out with a few of their members that we were out patrolling, making sure that what was reported here, there, and there is true or not, and it's actually having people to respond and going in, because we need to get that offline ASAP if it's not true, right? Because that generates all kinds of anxiety and all kinds of things in people. So we need to shut those down if they are not true. And if they are true, then we get a group of people to go out and document.
Do you have any sorts of like toolkits for folks that want to do an ice watch but just aren't sure what exactly that would look like?
Yeah, and there are also there's trainings. There's know your rights trainings. We're having them this Saturday, by the way. And then there's other no risk trainings, which are more for like activists or volunteers for the small neighborhood groups, which is training them on what you can do, what you can't do, what it is not. We are not there to prevent things from happening. We are there to document, So it's that type of training to avoid bigger disasters, right, and being ready for that. But more than anything, it's the accompanying factor. Because a lot of volunteers want to come in and help in the big issue that makes the news, but the long term, which is where the hard work is at, there's very little at stake to help those moments.
Great. Well, let's give them all a round of applause. And let's open the conversation up. Any questions, thoughts, comments?
You all are very inspired. Yeah, it's very, very nice. I have a question. Have you liaised with the South Omaha Neighborhood Alliance?
Yes.
And it felt like I saw you at some meetings.
Yes.
Okay. because I don't want to repeat anything, but, you know, the point you brought up about the false information. I mean, I try to stay off social media during the day because work, right? But people will text me and go, hey, they're down at, I think it was 10th and Capitol at some point, like months ago. And my first response is always to go to my fellow Hispanic friends who are part of SONA, who have a better network than I do, right? For that, I don't believe it was true. There were ICE vehicles, but they weren't related to any, right? So what would I do as a resident, just person, if I didn't have those connections, right? To determine, do I enroll? I don't know.
Well, see, here, the thing is, because immigration is such a hot topic, it's not very public for the protection of those we serve, right? So it's more of discerning what is my call here to do, and should I create a smaller group of my just 3, 4, 5 best friends, and one of them will be connected to the big group, and it just creates a big tree, and it just gets reported up, and then the volunteers from all kinds of groups can go check if yours can, right? And we work with each other. And today there was somebody from SONA helping us out, and others from another group, and then I was there as well. And it's just working as a team, right? But it's do we need that in my community? Right. And all it takes is just that training, and then from then on.
So you would recommend to take the training and then
Yes.
form a connection, like hypothetically with the church or with, because
Right.
I'm right across the street. But, okay, so that would be.
Yeah, and the reason why there's no like generic answer to that is because every little section within our neighborhoods is different. The reality in the South Omaha community is very different from Miller, right? So it's basically the training would be more focused to your reality, and the training would be focused more towards your reality. So the answer would be a lot easier to follow, and it wouldn't be just a cookie cutter template answer. It just doesn't work that way. Yeah.
I had a question for Karen. You mentioned gathering phone numbers and email addresses.
That's my husband.
Website. Did you also, after work, go around knocking on people's doors and asking them if they wanted trees and leaving big flyers? Have a big.
And I also dragged my husband into planting trees. He speaks pretty well for him.
Just wondering.
Yes, a lot of door to door, and sometimes people not answering and leaving flyers with painter's tape on the glass door, and yeah, so Keep Omaha Beautiful was pretty happy that I was willing to go door to door, because I said, I know that people need trees, but if they don't know about this, and sometimes I would help them get signed up right then and there, so that way that was easy. If they weren't very tech savvy, what's this QR code? How do I get to what is this? So being able to help people right then and there, yeah.
Yeah.
So you met people where they're at.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Also for Cammie, how do you feel about the name Faith in Action? Comfort.
Great. Is that what you're looking at? I think it's wonderful.
Oh, for artists,
Faith in action? It might be a little cliche coming from us. But I think it's great. We'll take it. I'll give you credit though.
Any other questions?
Have you stopped your tree initiative because of funding?
Mostly out of, we had, I worked with Keep Omaha Beautiful, and they had a grant that was through Arbor Day Foundation, and that's where the majority of the trees came from. And then I also worked on a project that I kind of started myself. The tornado happening on Arbor Day, I had very different plans for that weekend. I was going to plant trees instead of chainsaw cut them apart. And so I was on social media, and I saw it was the Papio NRD, said, hey, we have a lot of leftover saplings of blue Colorado spruce trees, free to a good home. And I said, I know a lot of good homes that could use them. So leveraging relationship with the Great Plains Nursery, I said, I actually have an arborist coming over later today. Let me see if, again, ask. In worst case scenario, they say no. Best case scenario, they say yes. So 50-50. I asked Great Plains Nursery, would you be willing to babysit 100 blue Colorado spruce saplings? And they did. For a year, they took care of these trees for us while people were rebuilding. And then they needed the production space, and I wasn't quite ready to distribute them still. So I said, what about the Parks Department? So they took care of them for another 6 months.
Wow.
So yeah, I would love to do more trees. And I do think some people still need some. It's amazing and shocking at the same time that even though we're coming up on the 2nd anniversary, there is still one house I can think of that has not been touched at all. There are some empty lots still. There are issues with contractors still. So while the neighborhood has come back to life in many ways, there's still a lot of need. And it wasn't even just my own neighborhood. I had, reached out to some of the people in the neighborhood to the north of us. And whenever, last year we had what did we call it? Bethany Lutheran hosted a celebration of survival. Early warning, by the way, saved lives in that tornado. And so I was very glad that we did not get rid of our early warning systems, as was a potential thing that was facing Nebraska. And so anyhow, meeting people there, reaching out to them. I met some farmers who they said they probably lost 100 trees. So they themselves definitely still need more. If you consider, why do so many farms have a border of trees around, having a windbreak? It's not just about, this raises property values, having a tree out front. It also helps decrease the cost for heating and cooling. And this, I did not expect to become Fern Bully or the Tree Lady or Tree Santa. Many nicknames have come around, but
Jamie Appleseed.
yeah, Jamie Appleseed. Yeah, we've had a few. So yes, I would be interested in doing more trees.
Because we do an annual event.
Awesome.
Although, because Exarban got hit by the derecho in 2017, and then the winds again
Yes.
from north 20. Your tornado.
Yeah.
And I know the Arbor Day Foundation did. I have a lead. We don't qualify for this grant, so I have a lead that I would like to share with you that actually came from Kimera, so can't take credit for this at all. But we found that Google Docs, right, are like the least intrusive
Yes.
to everybody.
Yeah.
But to Cammie's point, you can't get to everybody.
Yeah.
So we're trying. Cammie is an incredible partner for the neighborhood, and
Yeah, to your function. I was, like you said, on our Zoom call the other day, just hearing everything that you've done and you as well. It's amazing to hear what other people do, and it gives you that it's hope, and that people are out there doing good work that needs to be done.
Okay, thank you all so much for sharing all that you do and your experience. One, I just wanted to follow up. So you had talked about some trainings coming up that you had recommended folks go through if they were interested, for their neighborhoods. Is that through Omaha Rapid Response that one would find information about those, or is that a different organization?
Omaha Rapid Response Team is, it's not an actual organization. It's more just a lot of organizations coming together to provide this service, right? So there's not a one-stop place to do this, but we do mostly guide them to make things less confusing. We guide them either to Sarah or Brentwood Worker Center for any with anything, know your rights, which that is focused for the families affected. But if it's know the risks, then you can contact me regarding those, and then we work those as well.
Thank you.
So Omaha Rapid Response there's Omaha Rapid Response team that one's part of,
Yeah.
and there is a nonprofit called Omaha Rapid Response
Yeah.
that helped out in the aftermath of the tornado, and they actually go all over the world.
Yeah.
I talked to that guy ahead of this, and he was like, "I'm on my way to Malaysia."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay." As Omaha Rapid Response.
Yeah.
So they are two different things.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, questions?
Just don't give up. I mean, we all need more people like you guys. Honestly.
Yeah, and I think more conversation and sharing with each other, like what works, what doesn't. And it's okay to share what doesn't work, because that doesn't mean you're stupid. It means that you tried something and that's something that you can share with others. Obviously, everyone's going to make their own mistakes, but it's nice if you can make a mistake at 3 instead of 1, right?
That's true.
So next week, we're going to be talking with folks about setting up proactive care networks. So we sort of started with like, this is the institutional resources that are available. Today, we heard from folks who have set up response systems, often rapidly, and they're talking about a lot of different resources like nonprofits that they were leveraging. So the goal of next week's panel discussion is kind of talking about like how to build up proactive care systems around skill building. Like how can we as residents become the resource that we're looking for? So we're going to be hearing from folks talking about like setting up like accessibility libraries, food sovereignty projects, and other sort of skill building projects. So that's going to be really interesting as well. And I think when we talk about some of these like barriers with communications, some of that skill building is also included in that. Like how do you get 15 people that are interested to all understand how to use a QR code and all understand how to use a spreadsheet and all have the skills that are necessary, right? Because we do need to engage people at all levels. But we want to engage people at all levels so that we can move them up to other levels so that they can continue to engage more people at different levels. So we'll be talking through that next week. But I really want to thank everybody for showing up, hanging out. Like I said, all of these resources are going to be on the One Omaha website. I hope that folks will get each other's emails and have more conversations. And I hope that folks can use this as an opportunity to catalyze more collaborations. And I also hope that folks eat a ton more food before you leave. And yeah, take some time to chat with each other, learn each other's names, and figure out how you can continue building together. So thanks everybody. Last time.